I was thinking over the last few days that whenever I go to get a glass of water from my tap here in my town, if I drink the water, I don't think somehow that I'm going to get cholera or not. My wife Trudy, she's gone off to the grocery store this morning, and I don't think somehow if there's going to be bread on the shelves or not. I don't think about those things. And rarely, if ever, do I think about the color of my skin or my sexuality. I just drift along, not really thinking about those things. There's a contemporary blogger by the name of Seth Godin who says that I have an invisible immunity from those things, and there's a theologian by the name of Brad Jersak would say that I have a blind spot to those things. Whatever the case, they're both saying the same thing, that when others think about those things and I don't think about those things, I have something that they don't have, and that thing is called privilege. And both of those guys say, Jesse, you really need to do something about that. Privilege is a word that's out there very much in our culture these days. People talk about that a lot, and it's basically defined as those who have special rights or advantages or immunity that are granted to them or available to them. I have a lot of privilege. I'm white. I'm middle class. I'm a male, and I live in Canada. So with that comes a lot of privilege. And sometimes I need to be sort of jarred out of my privilege to realize where perhaps other people are. And there were two things that sort of jarred me out of my privilege over the last little bit. I was watching a BBC production, and it showed a picture of a lot of people, perhaps hundreds if not thousands of people gathered at the Kitutu market on the shores of Lake Kivu in Goma, and that's East Congo. And these people were there. There were perhaps, like I said, hundreds if not thousands were there. And the Congolese need that market because it provides them with their food. Now they're quite aware of COVID and they know all about social distancing. That's preached to them as well. But in reality, many of those people live from hand to mouth, and it really essentially means if there's no market, then there's no food for that day. So really, there isn't a choice between food and COVID or not. I have some friends who are doing some work in that part of the world. I mean, Congo borders other countries like Tanzania and Uganda and Rwanda, and people in Africa right now are really struggling in many ways, and they need help, and my friends, well, they need help helping them. The second thing that sort of jarred me out of my privilege as well was a news item that came out of British Columbia, and it was on June the 11th, CBC. And the document or the news item said that since the pandemic, up to that point in the 6 months, 167 people had died through COVID in British Columbia. But in the month of May alone, last May, this past May, 172 people died of an illicit drug overdose in British Columbia. And not only that, but since a public emergency was declared in 2016, 5,000 people have died of illicit drug overdose. And those are our sisters, our brothers, our family. These are children of Jesus. And well, I have a friend, and he has an uncle that's been on the streets of Vancouver for 30 years. And he and his wife, they work their best in this town so that people they serve don't become statistics, or somehow that they don't end up on the streets in some city far off. Yes, of course we have a lot of privilege, and what do we do with it? You know, some people may use it to exploit others, that they take that power and they could say, well, keep them in Africa, keep them on the streets, and I am where I am, and more may weaponize it. My point of view is more important than others, and they would put others down with that. There's got to be another way to deal with our privilege, and there is. It's the Jesus way. It's the Jesus way. In Philippians chapter 2, Paul talks about Jesus having equality with God. Yet he reminds us that Jesus didn't consider his equality with God something to be grasped. In other words, in a way, Jesus had privilege, but he didn't hold on to that privilege. He humbled himself, and then he emptied himself. He emptied himself out of his place with God, and he came to be among us. And he used that, he employed that privilege, if you want. He employed the privilege that he had to do three things: to serve among us, to suffer with us, and then to sacrifice his life as a full example of the love of God and how much God loves us. What does God look like? God looks like Jesus, and Jesus takes the privilege that he has, his equality with God, and on the last night before he dies, as a full example of how much love he has for those around him, he takes a basin, takes a towel, and he takes some water, and he washes their feet. And I think he's really saying, in a way, look, if you have privilege, then do what I've done for you, do that to others. Use your privilege to serve others. You know, the church is often sort of, we get a bad rap because of the way we judge one another, or the way we exclude one another, or perhaps we want to do things our own way. Maybe if we took a basin and towel, used water, and served others as a way of using our privilege, maybe we wouldn't have to talk about some of those divisions that we talk about in our culture today when it comes to privilege. Perhaps it's the Jesus way we need to be focusing on. Just a thought. Have a great week.